Hi there. I'm trying something new. Welcome to Big Story Gazette. I'm filming at night. I think I got my lighting fairly balanced. I have a light on this side and a light on that side, and like I said, from what I can see on the screen, it looks fairly balanced. Uh, if it's not, well, I'll see in the morning when I review this. When I wake up, because of my eyesight, I only see out of this eye. And when I wake up first thing in the morning or having been asleep for a while, I see the clearest out of it. But as I'm exposed to light during the day, ultraviolet or whatever, it just gets blurry and blurry. Well, I've been up for a while, so please bear with me. It's fairly blurry, but it looks like the lighting looks pretty even from this side to this side. Uh, and yeah, I can see the background, so it's lit up fairly well, I think. So we'll give it a shot. Like I said, it's a learning process. Anyway, the thing I want to talk about today is sovereignty. You'll see that in the title, because that's on the title, is sovereignty. And that's not something you hear much people talk about. You hear it occasionally, but nobody goes in depth about it. Well, I'm going to speak from the big story, as usual. I'm going to share things that Hilarious has shared with me. But before I do that, I went to Merriam-Webster Dictionary and wrote down two definitions. And I'll give you the first definition that I wrote down, which is sovereignty. Again, bear with me here. Sovereignty, freedom from external control, i.e., autonomy. That was one. And then the second one, supreme power, especially over a body politic. Okay? And now, the second word that I looked up, it had three definitions. The one applicable to this discussion here is mantle, M-A-N-T-L-E, mantle. Figurative cloak symbolizing preeminence or authority. So basically, we as divine sovereign beings, that's who we are. Divine, eternal, multidimensional sovereign beings. That's who we truly are, and we're incarnating into these physical bodies, these vehicles in the third dimension, these human suits, whatever you want to call them. But the true us is a divine, eternal, sovereign being, multidimensionally. Okay, so that's where I stand. That's my position in consciousness. Well, that sovereign being is the supreme authority. In this 3D world, we've been culturalized to not be sovereign. Basically, what we are culturalized to do is abdicate our sovereign authority. That preeminence, that where is it? That freedom from external control, autonomy. There is no outside authority. Nobody can tell you what to do unless you allow them to. Supreme power, especially over a body politic. The body politic being you and what's yours to do. As I've stated before, whenever I make a request of anybody, I always phrase it, if it's yours to do, because I respect their sovereign authority. I don't tell anybody what to do. I don't tell anybody to call me on the phone, give me a call. It's something as simple as that. Uh, when I ask Yasko, would you do me a favor? I always preface it with, if it's yours to do. I always, always honor and allow your and respect your sovereign authority because you don't answer to me. I'm not an outside authority to you, so you don't have to do what I tell you to do because you can say no. Conversely, nobody can tell me what to do because I'm a sovereign being. I recognize my sovereignty and I wear my cloak, my mantle of sovereignty. There's a thing called abdication. Matter of fact, I should have looked that up too, but I'll explain it. You've heard about how, say, a monarch abdicates his authority. Well, perfect example. Not back in the 30s, I think it was the King of England abdicated his throne simply so he could marry this American woman he fell in love with. Well, the rules and protocol of the monarchy in England at the time, they might have changed it now since what's his name married this other chick just recently, the latest quote royal wedding. But it was a big thing back in the mid 1900s or the mid portion of 19th century. I think it was 1930. I'm not sure when it was, but there you can look it up. Okay, if it's yours to do. A king of England abdicated his sovereign throne so that he could marry a common woman, an American woman that he fell in love with. Well, he had to step down from the throne, from his sovereign position. He had to take off and remove his mantle of sovereignty and now become a commoner so that he could marry this common woman. Well, what we all, on a very unconscious level, because we're not born into this world without our sovereignty, but we're culturalized to step down and abdicate our sovereign authority. So what I have done, excuse me, and I suggest you do, pick up your mantle of authority. Put back your mantle of authority. Regain your sovereignty. There is no outside authority. Nobody can tell you what to do. Nobody controls you except that which you allow. You hear the phrase, well, I had no choice. You always have a choice. Simply for the fact that you're here in this universe of duality, you have a choice. Always, always, always. Now, when making that choice, one has to consider the consequences of whichever choice they made, the ramifications of whichever choice they made, and then one has to check within themselves to see if they can accept the ramifications and the consequences of the choice you made. But you always have a choice. You can always say no to whatever's put in front of you. If it's not yours to do, you can say no. You may ruffle some feathers, you may hurt some feelings, you may get fired, you may whatever, get divorced, whatever. But if you can accept the ramifications and consequences of your choice, you always have a choice. And that's exerting your divine sovereign authority. It's a tough nut, believe me, because we're told, no, you can't do this or you can't do that. You got to do this, you got to do that. There's a lot of stuff I don't do. There's a lot of stuff I do. But I always make a choice, yay or nay, to whatever it is presented in front of me. I generally will examine it from as many angles as possible. Examine the ramifications and the consequences and my position in life in general in that now moment. Can I handle that? Am I willing to do that? And if the answer is no, then I say no. If the answer is yes, I'm willing to, quote, take the risk or accept the responsibility of the consequences, then yeah, because I am my own sovereign being. Most people don't like that about me because I can't be swayed. I will, and I a lot of times somebody asks me to do something and I'll just go, well, I'll see if it's mine to do. And they'll go like, what? And I just go, I'll check in and I'll see if it's mine to do. If it is, yeah, I'll do whatever it is you're requesting of me. But, some things I just know aren't mine to do. I don't even have to check in. I just innately know that's not mine to do. Which is one of the reasons why I don't have a lot of friends. Because here's another thing. They're in the vernacular of our modern society. And we've all seen it. Hell, I remember, I'll go back to when I was a child, when I was a kid. My father had this habit, this idiosyncrasy of his. He would be saying something to me, and then when he'd get done, he'd go, huh. And I knew what he was doing. He was asking me to agree with him. And a lot of times, just because, I guess, hard-headed, which, by the way, most people consider me hard-headed. When I first started driving big truck, and you know how everybody's got a CB handle? My CB handle was hard-headed. My mom told me, you're one of the hard-headedest kids I've ever met. Because I am. I've just always been that way. And I set it up that way before I got here. I made sure that was one of my idiosyncrasies. One of my traits is, no, I'm not just going to roll over and buy whatever you say. I'm not just going to agree with whatever you say. And it used to piss my dad off all the time. He would be saying something to me, not in the sense of reprimanding me or nothing, but just expressing a point of view of his, which he was entitled to, and then he'd go, huh. And I would wouldn't say nothing. And he'd look at me and go, huh. And then sometimes I'd just acquiesce and go, yes, sir. Sometimes I just wouldn't say a word. And he'd just know, well, I'm not going to get nothing out of him this time. So he'd just drop it. Well, what happens now is in nowadays, modern times, you hear modern times like that was, a zillion years ago. Anyway, current times, in our vernacular, there's this thing, and you hear it all the time. It's saying in my household all the time. Yasko has this habit. Well, somebody be going something, and then when they get done, they'll go, right. Right? They'll ask a question, right? Well, they're asking you to agree with them. Well, when you just unconsciously agree with what they said, without even thinking about it, you're acknowledging one of the elements of their picture of reality. Now, if you fully feel that way, then yeah, go ahead and agree with them because that's something you have in common. But again, if you just do it unconsciously, agree with them, you're confirming your position in their picture of reality. That may be okay with you or it might not be okay with you. But it's something that I don't do. And that doesn't make me better or worse than anybody else. It definitely makes me different. But I just don't, I don't use that phraseology. I don't ever ask anybody to agree with me. If I have a position, I put it out there and you do with what's yours to do. I don't ask you to agree with me. As you guys all know in this video series, said a zillion times, I don't care whether you agree with me or not. So that's one of them, and that's how I feel in my life in general. I don't care if people don't agree with me. So that's one of the reasons why I don't use that and have never used it and don't adopt it. That's current now where, you know, yeah, right. Or how does it go? Uh, or does somebody say something and then somebody that agree goes, yeah, right. Okay, that's fine. You agree with that. But the point I'm making is when somebody says something and then they end it with right, that means they want you or they're expecting you to agree with their position and consciousness, with their thought. And if you don't, then consider the possibility they may think something's wrong with you. That's their divine sovereign right to think that something's wrong with you. Whether you agree with there's something wrong with you or not, you may be just fine with you. I know I'm just fine with me. Matter of fact, I was washing dishes today because that's one of the things that I've always believed, as long as I can remember from my very first marriage, 30 years ago or better, 35 years ago at least, I think my first marriage was anyway, whoever cooks doesn't have to wash the dishes. That's just simple fairness. And every household I have ever lived in, with every person, married or unmarried, that I've ever lived with, that has been a household rule of mine that I adhere to. Whoever cooks doesn't have to wash the dishes. You've already done your part of the labor. Yeah, that's just simple fairness. So, because I'm just a fair person, but I don't agree with whatever anybody says to me, and I admonish you that mantle of sovereignty. You guys really, really, really have to think about this stuff. Do you agree with everything everybody says? Because when you do just unconsciously agree with them when they go right, and you're you're not saying anything, can be an acquiescence, can be taken as the as an acquiescence. But generally, I look at it as no, it's not. A lot of times, what I'll do is go, well, that's definitely an opinion, because it is. That's all it is. It's their opinion, and it is definitely an opinion. It's theirs. I'm not saying I disagree with you, because most people, especially one very close to me in my household, if I disagree with her, she takes it as an argument. And I have to tell her a zillion times a day, I'm not required to agree with you. Just because I don't agree with you on any particular subject doesn't mean I'm arguing. Because I'm not required to agree with you. Conversely, you're not required to agree with me. And if you don't agree with me, I accept that exactly as it is. See, and that's speaking from a position of sovereignty. Because that's who we truly are. I think I'm done. I love you. Blessings on your journey, and I will talk to you soon.